Dean Durant and Allison Spooner made headlines in 2001 when they welcomed biracial twin daughters into their family. This event, which is quite rare, was followed by an even more surprising occurrence 7 years later that left Allison speechless. Dean Durant and Allison Spooner were just another mixed-race couple living their lives in Britain when they began dating. Dean, with West Indian heritage, had darker skin, while Allison was fair-skinned when Allison became pregnant. The couple was thrilled at the prospect of starting a family. Their excitement grew when they learned they were expecting twins. Little did they know then that their daughters would be extraordinary. Haley and Lauren arrived earlier than expected, and from their first cries, it was evident they were unique. Unlike identical twins, Haley and Lauren were fraternal, each conceived from a separate egg fertilized by a different sperm. This genetic twist meant that Haley resembled her father Dean, with darker skin and dark hair. In contrast, Lauren took after her mother Allison, with lighter skin, red hair, and striking blue eyes. Even though biracial twins are extremely unusual, Dean and Allison were certain that their daughters were indeed of mixed race. It was obvious that they had a daughter who mirrored their genes the instant they held Haley and Lauren. The rising prevalence and social acceptance of mixed-race marriages has contributed to the unusual but growing trend of biracial twins. Children of parents of mixed racial origin are more likely to have a mixture of skin tones, as skin color is regulated by a complex set of genes passed down through generations. The prevalence of particular genes determines the spectrum of possible offspring appearances from mixed-race marriages, which can range from white to black. Dean and Allison had never even entertained the idea of having biracial twins before they got pregnant. It was like spinning the dice and always getting the most surprising result. Their expectation was that their children's skin tones would be similar to their own. They had no idea that multiracial twins existed until the amazing event took place. A quick genetics lesson brought home how lucky and extraordinary it was that they were the parents of identical twins, growing up in Fleet, England. Haley and Lauren faced some challenges but also gained a measure of fame. People often did double takes when they saw the girls together at school, only to understand when they saw their parents, Dean with darker skin and Allison with lighter skin. Some struggled to believe they were twins. The concept that twins could look so different was foreign to many. At school, their uniqueness was celebrated. A photo of them hung in the biology classroom to illustrate the marvels of genetics. Some parents needed education on the matter, but overall, Dean and Allison dealt with occasional odd comments with grace. Raising twins of the same age was financially demanding. Buying two of everything posed challenges, but Dean, a fleet management professional, and Allison, a recruitment consultant, managed with love and determination. They weren't wealthy by monetary standards but felt rich in the love they shared as a family. Haley and Lauren were not just sisters but also best friends. They shared a bedroom since birth and enjoyed activities like building puzzles together. At 7 years old, they adored playing with dolls but were soon drawn to more interactive hobbies. Having each other's constant love and support was a precious blessing for them both, and they couldn't imagine life without their twin by their side. Allison was taken aback and overjoyed when she found out she was expecting again in 2008. The prospect of growing their family thrilled her. Even if the news shocked her at first, it was a comfort that they didn't have to buy anything new because they had stored all the clothes and baby gear from their twins. Since Haley and Lauren were at an appropriate age to welcome a new sibling, Allison and Dean, who were both 33 years old, decided that 27 was a good age for a child. Allison was filled with a mixture of joy and fear the day the doctors announced she was having twins once more. Although they were worried about money, they were able to relax because they knew they had most of what they needed. To their joy, they were looking forward to adding 2 more daughters to their loving family. There were greater difficulties with this pregnancy than with the first. Both kids were found to be in breech position at 37 weeks, which meant that a natural birth could not happen. The 30-minute cesarean section delivery took place at Surrey's Frimley Park Hospital. Sister Leah weighed 5.1 pounds when she came on October 13, 2008, while Mia weighed 4.11 pounds, a little less. Both girls had trouble breathing properly, which added stress to an already joyful birth. As a result of their hasty transfer to a special care facility, they experienced their first separation at such a young age. staff at the hospital toiled away for 5 days straight to get them stabilized, reunited, and presented to their parents with delight. Mia and Leah finally made it through those nervous moments. The experience left Allison and Dean astonished, realizing they had overlooked or perhaps should have foreseen this possibility long before it happened, a moment that forever changed their lives. It became clear from their birth stats that Mia and Leah differed slightly in size, a fact the parents anticipated. However, seeing them side by side in a crib evoked astonishment, reminiscent of the birth of their older daughters. This time, Leah joined her mother Allison and older sister Lauren with lighter skin, while Mia resembled her father Dean and sister Haley with darker skin, with 3 members of the family having light skin and 3 with dark skin. Race was never a focal point for them. The couple achieved the unimaginable, never expecting their second set of twins to cause such a stir. Against all odds, Mia and Leah were yet another biracial pair. The likelihood of this happening again was so minuscule that the Guinness World Records team recognized them as one of the rarest phenomena ever to occur in a maternity ward. At that time, they were the only family globally known to have produced 2 sets of biracial twins. The older twins, Lauren and Haley, were overjoyed when their baby sisters finally came home. They embraced the opportunity to play with real babies instead of their usual dolls. As time passed, Lauren and Haley became strong role models for Mia and Leah. Interestingly, as they grew, Leah and Mia started to resemble each other more and more. Despite beating incredible odds, they remained a normal, happy family. Lauren and Haley have blossomed into beautiful young ladies at 22, while Leah and Mia are now 15-year-old teenagers. They are all growing up quickly, much to the amazement of their parents. After watching the first story above, do you have any thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, let's watch another similar story. When 2 sisters each welcomed a newborn on the same day, they were ecstatic about the unexpected coincidence. However, 7 years later, a shocking revelation would shake their foundation and make them question their entire bond with their children. This tale begins with Catherine and Anna, sisters whose lives mirrored each other's so closely that they seemed like twins. Not only did they share striking physical resemblances, but their interests and hobbies were also identical. Their extraordinary connection extended to their pregnancies, both miraculously conceiving around the same time. Despite having due dates just a week apart, Catherine and Anna delivered their daughters simultaneously, in the same hospital, on the exact same day. Overjoyed by this serendipitous twist of fate, they cherished being so closely linked once again. The newborns bore a remarkable family resemblance. Much to the delight of Catherine and Anna, they marveled at their daughters' matching eye and hair colors, and their perfectly matched skin tones. In the nursery, it was often challenging to tell the babies apart in their identical cribs, a sentiment echoed by the hospital staff who found the 2 new arrivals captivating. Life seemed perfect, with both sisters embracing the challenges and joys of motherhood with unwavering determination. As first-time mothers, they navigated the unknown with diligence, learning and growing alongside their children. Catherine found comfort in leaning on her sister for guidance, knowing Anna would always be there for support, and vice versa. Little did they know, fate had a cruel twist in store. Their bond was deeper and more profound than either of their parents could ever hope to understand. Amy and Charlotte, daughters of sisters Anna and Catherine, grew up as close as sisters themselves. Remarkably, Amy and Charlotte shared the same initials as their mothers, a coincidence that seemed to strengthen their uncanny resemblance. Genetics, a kind of magic in the realm of medicine, revealed traits that Amy and Charlotte inherited from their mothers, fathers, and grandparents, but mostly from their beloved aunts. Sometimes Anna couldn't help but feel that Charlotte was a miniature version of herself, while Catherine often joked that Amy seemed destined to inherit her aunt's exact personality traits. Fast forward 7 years, a shocking truth suddenly crashed down upon them like a tidal wave. It all began when little Amy started feeling unwell during a family bout of flu-like symptoms. Concerned, Amy's parents took the entire family to the local hospital for a checkup, including drawing blood. Taking blood from a 7-year-old was no easy task, but what came next was far more unsettling. The initial stages of testing were routine, but the moment the results arrived, their world turned upside down. the doctors, apologetic yet perplexed, explained that Amy's blood type was incompatible with both of her parents. Anna and her husband were both blood type A positive, while Amy was supposedly AB positive, an impossibility, despite repeated tests amidst Amy's tears. The results stubbornly confirmed that something was indeed awry with Amy's blood type. This unexpected revelation threw their lives into disarray, unleashing a torrent of unanswered questions. Anna's husband, who had never questioned her fidelity, now found his faith wavering. When the doctors requested consent for a DNA test to unravel the mystery, the fragile fabric of trust began to fray. The husband of Anna felt his heart break into a million pieces when the DNA test confirmed that Amy was not his legitimate daughter. Anna vowed to begin an extensive search for the truth. Despite her steadfast denial that she had ever been unfaithful, she devoted herself to understanding the intricacies of genetic inheritance and DNA testing by consulting with medical experts and geneticists. Nevertheless, an unforeseen source provided the key to unlocking this baffling enigma. A nurse who had been present during Catherine and Anna's delivery happened to remember Anna's face by complete chance. Perhaps the infant Anna had been caring for was really Catherine's daughter, the nurse said, expressing a strange and disturbing theory. Even though Anna first wrote it off as a crazy joke, the thought kept popping into her head. Despite its fantastical character, the more she thought about it, the more reasonable it looked. Was the hospital able to verify the occurrence of such a catastrophic error? Staff members at the hospital were so worried that they painstakingly searched through their vast databases of patient records. They dug deep to find evidence for or against the nurse's outlandish hypothesis. The carefully recorded information on the deliveries proved, much to everyone's surprise, that the nurse's gut feeling was correct, in keeping with Catherine's husband's blood type B. Amy's blood type was classified as type A positive at birth. On the other hand, Charlotte was known to be AB positive. This inconsistency made perfect sense from a biological perspective. It suggested that the two girls had been accidentally exchanged and sent back to the wrong couples after delivery. As they tried to process the unfathomable error, the medical personnel was taken aback by the realization that they had accidentally exchanged the newborns. It was an enormous, tragic, and inexplicable blunder that had terrible consequences. The fact that little Amy had no biological relationship to Anna's husband, he was her uncle, not her father, is explained by the fact that these innocent sisters had unknowingly nurtured each other's children. Catherine was obviously shocked, so Anna had to break the news to her. Both sisters were in disbelief at what had happened and couldn't understand how the hospital had let such a mix-up happen. Because they couldn't fathom that the kid they brought home wasn't actually theirs, they also battled with emotions of maternal inadequacy. Significant family strife ensued as a result of the revelation involving Catherine and Anna. In addition to being enraged and unsure of what to do at the hospital, they began to doubt their own sentiments for the children they had brought up. Would their bond with their daughters be strained as a result of this? Could they come to terms with the fact that, for 7 years, they had cared for their nephews rather than their own children? Above all else, could they make up their minds to re-swap the girls or keep caring for the child they had helped? Catherine and Anna were both overwhelmed by the barrage of inquiries. One thing was certain, though, in all the chaos and anxiety brought on by this disturbing problem, the love and friendship between Catherine and Anna was stronger than ever. This could have easily driven a wedge between them, but they remained strong. But rather than allowing the terrifying ordeal to drive a wedge between them, Catherine and Anna drew closer together as a result. They couldn't fathom anyone else taking care of their daughters after realizing they had done such a wonderful job as mothers. This belief prompted Catherine and Anna to take the unusual choice of becoming supermoms, sharing parental responsibilities for their children with their respective partners. They were secure in their decision despite the fact that their parenting style would cause eyebrows to raise in their community. Thanks to co-parenting, they were able to keep a close eye on their adopted kids as well as the ones they had raised. They sold their separate homes and bought a bigger one so they could all live together in harmony. Taking advantage of their new family dynamic, they emphasized to Amy and Charlotte, who were 7 years old at the time, that biological parentage was not the most essential component in their family, and that they were loved equally by all of their parents, they diverted their attention to the mutual support and love they had for one another. Since the girls were already very close and excited about having regular sleepovers with their favorite persons, they enthusiastically accepted the plan. This out-of-the-box choice, which seemed strange to some, ended up being quite satisfying for everyone. The youngsters were fortunate to have twice as much love, care, and support as average. While each of their respective lives unfolded, the sisterly bond between Catherine and Anna grew stronger when they took on the responsibilities of motherhood. They found out that this kind of welcoming and supportive family dynamic was far better than anything they had anticipated. There was a certain elegance to the disorder, and yet everything fell into place. Coordinating schedules and resolving conflicts were only two of the many obstacles that life threw at us. However, these extraordinary mothers overcame every challenge with poise and resolve, demonstrating that no problem was impossible to overcome. They managed to find a silver lining in the otherwise less than ideal circumstance that had been brought about by the hospital's oversight. Against all odds, they decided against suing the hospital for their pain and suffering, in particular. They hoped that the media and rumors would not spread their tale too quickly. Rather, they intended to reveal the truth to their daughters at a later age. They were temporarily distracted by the bright side. Each couple had a child, which they viewed as a triumph. This family's affection for one another was unwavering, an important lesson about embracing change, finding support in one another, and building an atypical, remarkable family was taught by Catherine and Anna. They proved that love has no bounds and that love and dedication, not blood, form a family. An incredible tale of love, resilience, and exceptional parenting unfolded in this unbelievable tale of exchanged infants. In the face of adversity, it demonstrated that love and bravery can bring about wonderful outcomes. After watching this story above, do you have any thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, let's watch another similar story. As soon as the obstetrician heard Margaret's newborn baby cry out, he was so shocked that he screamed. Nevertheless, he was compelled to act upon this shock, and the baby's life was spared. When Margaret finally went into labor after weeks of waiting, she and her husband Max were filled with an overwhelming sense of delight. They were blessed beyond measure when they finally held their son after a long and painful birth. The physician then swiftly removed their infant son to a nearby examining room. Their confidence was well placed because he was a trained expert who had carried out similar operations countless times previously. But Max still wanted to go with him. He expected Dr. William to be resistant, but the obstetrician just nodded and looked down at the two babies. He screamed in shock as he took up a baby to examine him more closely. He paid them no mind whatsoever. Even though they were looking at him with astonishment and wanting to know what was wrong, with a frown on his face, he studied the infant even more closely, as if he were tuned into an invisible world. He then locked eyes with the kid once more, as if daring him to respond. Dr. William and other obstetricians evaluate a baby's ability to live on their own after birth by administering a battery of tests. The baby might have to be sent to a neonatal intensive care unit or an incubator if problems develop. After reaching full term, Margaret's babies had a higher than average probability of being sent home with their parents, but Dr. William's attitude during the exam made him suddenly order more testing. Max wasted no time in getting an explanation out of him. Seemingly unconcerned with Max's questions, Dr. William persisted with his task, unfamiliar with the technique. Max gazed in astonishment when the doctor extracted blood samples from each baby. Before returning to the infants, Dr. William carefully reviewed the findings. "I overheard him say it," he whispered under his breath as his demeanor turned grave. "I swear I overheard him say that." He seemed confused, so a worried nurse wanted to know how he was doing. As the doctor responded, "I heard that baby say something to me." Max felt a shiver go down his back. "There's no way." What sounded like help. "I must have dreamed it." Max steadied himself by grabbing a nearby cabinet. "Interpret it for me. Were any of their kids sick?" Margaret would be absolutely crushed if something went wrong despite everything. Max waited nervously for the test results, which the nurses said may take hours, because he didn't know what to do next. On the other hand, Margaret's anticipation of holding her twin infants again was understandable. He didn't know how to make this tragic scenario more understandable to her. Assuring him that the babies would receive the best care possible, a nurse calmed him down. Max found Margaret sitting up in bed, still relatively clear-headed from the long labor of giving birth to twins, but distressed by the length of time it had taken for the twins to return. Even when Max gave her the rundown, her anxiety remained unassuaged. Minutes felt like hours when they lingered in Margaret's hospital bed. At long last, the unexpected arrival of Dr. William did not disappoint. But the doctor appeared very different from their prior meetings, when he had emanated self-assurance, maybe even a trace of hubris, over his abilities. It all started when Margaret, during her twin pregnancy, woke up one morning with terrible abdominal pain and was sure something had gone wrong. Max, like all expectant fathers, felt a familiar feeling of powerlessness when he got ready to rush his worried wife to the doctor. It was difficult to find parking at Dr. William's hospital, so Max left Margaret off at the front door after making sure she was well enough to walk to his consulting rooms on the second floor by herself. Margaret arrived at the busy reception area to see that it was full with people who were expecting. Everyone in the city appeared to be expecting a child. Margaret was welcomed with warmth when she approached the receptionist. "Receptionist, how are you doing, Margaret? I know you're excited about the two tiny mischievous people in there. I believe your due date is next month." "You're right," Margaret answered, "roughly on November 11th, but I believe there is a problem. I have an awful feeling, and I can't get rid of this stomach spasm. If you could squeeze me in, I would truly appreciate it." The receptionist responded, "Let's take a look." As she looked over the schedule, "It's going to be challenging. Our appointments are all going behind schedule because of the two unexpected deliveries that happened early this morning." Sighing, Margaret chose to wait even though it didn't look like there would be a chair available. Margaret was eventually called in for another patient, and she gladly sat down to ease her hurting legs. She kept thinking about the receptionist's words, wondering if her babies might arrive early and ease her current suffering. Margaret was still engrossed in her thoughts of being a mother at a young age when Max first came at the reception area. Neither he nor his wife were happier. He realized that more investigation was necessary into this matter after observing Dr. William's intense level of activity in spite of her earlier worries about abrupt discomfort. Margaret's obstetrician, Dr. William, eventually fit her in after they waited for almost 2 hours, but she could tell right away throughout the consultation that he was preoccupied. He put his palm on her stomach and used his stethoscope to listen for a moment before stating that everything was normal. "Are you certain?" Margaret carefully inquired after a moment of hesitation. "Yes, of course," was his gruff response. "Have you had any food? It might be food poisoning, which is very common among pregnant women." Objecting, Margaret said, "I haven't eaten anything suspicious." Dr. William interrupted, saying that stress could also play a role. "After all of the difficulties in getting pregnant, you could be too nervous. Just try to unwind and get enough sleep, and everything ought to work out." It was true that she had been attempting to get pregnant for 3 years, but her symptoms hadn't been imagined. Why was he brushing her off with such speed? Margaret saw a half-eaten sandwich and a half-empty cup of coffee on his desk. She must have arrived while he was still eating lunch. For an instant she regretted interrupting him, but her worry for her children overrode her compassion. Margaret was unhappy with Dr. William's nonchalant manner and dismissive of her worries. That much was true. He was a highly respected obstetrician in their city. Margaret's friends and co-workers had all said wonderful things about him. Her personal consultation with him, though, had been far from fruitful. Margaret was not at all relieved, and she was reluctant to go back to his office. She made every effort to treat her stomach ache during the ensuing years, but it lingered. She avoided spicy food, drank herbal tea, listened to calming music, meditated, and did anything else she could to decompress. Nothing appeared to be useful. She felt no better at all at the prospect of having to wait in Dr. William's packed waiting room once more. After the excruciating agony became unbearable, she grudgingly contacted his office again. While he did provide a safe pain reliever, he failed to provide any helpful guidance or words of encouragement. Again, Dr. William blamed stress for her symptoms, bringing attention to the fact that she was a first-time mother expecting twins. Margaret was about to cry when she hung up the phone. Did Dr. William mean to say that her tension was making her sick? Was he of the opinion that she was too sensitive to deal with anything? Max, who was far more understanding than the doctor, was her confidant that night. Getting a second opinion from a different obstetrician was something they talked about. Ultimately, Max took the pain medication as prescribed, and it helped a little. The moment they believed things were getting better, a fresh obstacle emerged. Without any indications of imminent labor, Margaret's due date, the 11th, passed. She found herself ensnared in stress and strain again, despite her best efforts to escape them. Another excruciating week passed without any signs of labor after the 12th. The couple's search for a method to induce labor was driven by desperation. Margaret experimented with a number of things, occasionally with Max's help. Thankfully, their perseverance was ultimately rewarded. At last, the much-anticipated beginning of labor had arrived, the sensation of her first contractions. It was a mad dash to the car for Max and Margaret because they were short on time. It seemed like the green light at each red traffic signal took a lifetime to come around. Max followed Margaret to the maternity ward when she was quickly brought to the hospital. Assuring the expecting mother's comfort and readiness for delivery, the nurses maintained the highest level of professionalism. Nevertheless, Dr. William's silhouette hung above Margaret's bed while she writhed in agony. Margaret was in much pain by this point that she might not have known if the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus had come to deliver her babies. Max scowled, realizing that this was the same doctor who had given him so much grief, suffering, and insecurity in the weeks before. He went up to a senior nurse in private and asked if there was any chance another doctor may be involved in the delivery. While sympathetically listening to his worries, the nurse reassured him that Dr. William was the greatest obstetrician in the area. When Max saw Margaret in such pain, he grudgingly decided to put aside his reservations. He decided to watch the obstetrician's movements closely and offer her every help he could, much to Max's relief. Dr. William acted with professionalism and expertise, setting up equipment and checking on Margaret in a comforting way. He helped Margaret through the difficult process of giving birth alongside the nurse. In spite of the tremendous discomfort, the first baby was born safely in 30 minutes. Max started to feel relieved that maybe he had been hasty in his initial assessment of Dr. William. For a little while, Margaret cradled her newborn while greetings of congratulations from everyone on their newfound parenthood were exchanged, but their suffering was far from ended. The second birth turned out to be far more difficult, requiring all of Margaret's remaining strength and willpower. She thought she heard Dr. William, the nurse, or Max telling her to keep going, to be strong, to hold on. She was so tired, she felt completely drained. She knew it wasn't done yet, that she still had to wait for the second kid to come. As her child was placed in her arms, she thought, now I see why they call it labor. Margaret looked into his little face, her lovely new arrival, and felt a dazzling warmth. She didn't worry that she couldn't spend more time with him because she needed to relax. Max, her husband, nervously followed the nurse when she removed the babies. He begged to be let to see their medical examinations. The nurse sympathized but clarified that it wasn't typical procedure. Max continued, describing their recent struggles. She finally gave up, giving him a rare opportunity to spend time with the doctor. The physician seemed unsure of himself and acknowledged that he had earlier overlooked Margaret's worries. It appeared that one of their infants had reached out to him, requesting assistance. He informed them that both twins had a womb infection as they made their way back to their room. If he hadn't stepped in, things might have turned out disastrously. The physician went on to say that Margaret's previous discomfort was probably caused by this illness, which is thankfully curable but raises questions for the baby's long-term health. Delays in development and changes to the placental composition during pregnancy are additional complications of these infections that might affect the fetus's nutrition and oxygen delivery. If the condition is severe, it might cause miscarriages or birth abnormalities. Although not yet widely used, screening tests are very important due to the precarious equilibrium between the mother's and baby's immune systems. These problems may have been fatal if not detected soon after birth. And treatment options are still in the experimental stages. Oddly enough, the obstetrician chose to perform vital screening tests, which led to the infection diagnosis. When the baby seemed to communicate with Dr. William, Dr. William was relieved that the infant's babbling encouraged him to continue with the testing, even if the baby hadn't specifically requested assistance. Antibiotics designed specifically for neonates were administered to both twins after their transfer to a neonatal hospital that deals with infants at high risk. Thanks be to God, they had a good response to therapy, and follow-up testing proved that the illnesses had cleared up. The babies were eventually safe after 6 months of close observation, which was a relief for Max and Margaret, who were quite proud of their offspring. That their children were unharmed for the long haul was a relief for them. Dr. William deeply regretted his previous mistake, which he admitted may have killed the twins. James, the second twin, became a cherished testimony to their incredible recovery when he unexpectedly said his first word at 11 months. After watching the stories above, do you have any thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comment section. If you enjoyed our video, please like, subscribe, and share our channel. That's all about today's stories. See you next time.